The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
I saw a pale horse.
The beast.
We're told in the book of Revelation.
This is not a human child.
Isn't an angel?
Satan.
Armageddon is almost upon us.
Order the use of nuclear weapons.
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for.
From one end of the world to the other, I will oppose you.
They're here.
Welcome to the end of the world.
Wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. This is P.I.D. Radio.
From a semi-secure bunker on a ridge overlooking the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, this is P.I.D. Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and welcome to our secure bunker, Sam says, because it is not semi-secure when you have a dachshund in the house.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Dad!
He's poking his head out of the binky as if to confirm what Sharon just said. So welcome, and thank you for letting us into your ear holes, however you're accessing the program.
Open up your head hole, Slappy!
Yeah, about to testify, whether it's at PIDradio.com or Spreaker.com, Stitcher, or any of the other fine places, places where fine podcasts are sold. We're also available at YouTube now, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Derek Gilbert, audio only.
Yeah. Because this is a podcast.
Yeah, this is a podcast. So you're getting just a static image of the two of us, but you can pretend that our mouths are moving while we're doing this. We're not really doing.
If you want to make our mouths move in your head, that's fine.
That's fine. We're not doing anything interesting enough to put on video. So
trust me, we're not.
Yeah.
We would so just bore you to tears.
Yeah. So March 11th, 2018, the date, and a lot going on out there. Not that you would know it from the mainstream media as per usual. Which
it's
is
the same stuff over and over again.
It's fixated on what can we do to try to damage Donald Trump today, or spin the meme that aliens exist and we need to be chasing them or making contact with them or some such.
You know, bottom line is it seems to be Russia, Russia, Russia.
Russia, Russia, Russia. Yep.
One way or the other.
Yeah. In fact, it's gotten so bizarre, and I suspect this is because CNN is now so far down in the cable ratings, they do not have a single news program in the top 20.
Ooh.
Not of all cable ratings, but of cable news shows.
Oh, my goodness. They owned that.
They
For the longest time, they owned that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at cable news programming, it's basically Fox, the big dog, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow's in there at number 3, I think, the number 3 show. Hannity and the new fellow who's up there who's...
Derek Gilbert?
No.
He's my favorite one.
Tucker Carlson.
Oh, yeah.
Who's doing an excellent job, by the way. They're number 1 and 2. Rachel Maddow's in there. But Fox News dominates. CNN's top-rated show is Anderson Cooper AC360, and that's at number 24.
Oh.
I mean, it used to be that CNN would be among the top 20 of cable programs, period, but now it's not even in the top 20 of cable news programs.
My goodness.
So they actually sent a news crew to Thailand because a prostitute in Thailand who is incarcerated in Thailand says she has information about the connections between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And if the American government would just give me asylum, I'll spill the... Oh, okay. Yeah, right. This is newsworthy? Well,
no.
It is to CNN. That's why they're number 3 and fading. I mean, before you know it, Newsmax TV is going to catch up to CNN.
Oh, yeah. In fact, they may have already.
American News.
It's Russia, 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 not just because of Donald Trump, but also because of this proxy war. Russia has been involved in the Middle East for a long, long time.
Yes.
And prophetically speaking, there are a lot of people who look to Russia thinking that at the very least they're going to be involved in the final showdown in Jerusalem, because all the world comes to Jerusalem for that. But take a look at what happened. It's like a plot from Spooks, which we call MI5 over here in the United States. The spy show, the stories coming out for the last week or more about the attempted assassination of a spy and his daughter in England.
Yes.
A Russian spy who had turned informant, helping out England. Suddenly it's, you go to some of these news sites and the entire page is nothing but stories, various sidebars, and we're looking at it from this angle. We talked to this person. We went to the restaurant where that happened. We've got video footage, CCTV footage. We've identified this person. We think we know what the nerve agent was. We think we know how it was prepared. Oh, by the way, baby wipes will take it off your phone. There are so many crazy stories about this. This drum is getting louder and louder. This is similar to the situation back in 2010 when Alexander Litvinenko, who was a former FSB agent, that's the successor to the KGB, was poisoned with the radioactive element polonium-210, slipped into his tea. Yes.
Once you ingest that, you're dead. You're a dead man walking, and that's what happened to Litvinenko. He'd been very critical of Putin, and now he's dead. Putin, they never... A later tribunal in the UK assigned responsibility to Putin, whether he actually said it or not. Might have been one of those Henry II thing. Who will rid me of this troublesome former agent? And somebody did it. Plausible deniability, but
we don't know. But here's my thinking on this: is we've been seeing news out of Great Britain for the last few years, essentially saying Russia's out to get us.
Yeah,
including Russia ships going through the channel, just sort of waving and saying, we're not doing anything. Does this bug you? We're not touching you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of streaming through.
Yes.
Or steaming through.
So suddenly we've got, like I say, many not just the red tops, but many of the legitimate news sites, BBC News, Telegraph, beating this drum, making it seem like how dare Russia do something on our soil. In fact, this summer the World Cup is in Russia, and there are now questions: do we dare send anybody? Can the royal family attend? Will we get other nations who are our allies to agree that they won't attend the World Cup? Yeah.
In case you missed it, the background of this: the deaths a week ago of a Russian double agent named Sergei Skripal.
They're not dead.
Or rather, fighting for his life.
It was the attempted assassination.
Attempted assassination, right. They're in critical condition. He's 66. His 33-year-old daughter, Yulia, ate a meal in Salisbury. And they were found essentially unresponsive in behaving. He was kind of jerking and behaving spasmodically motions.
Yes.
And the police officer who was the first one on the scene was also hospitalized. And a number of others who attended, first responders, people in hospital, are also were affected by whatever nerve agent was used to try to kill him.
And the Army has been called in. MI5 has been called in. MI6 has been called in. SAS has been called in. And 500 responders in hazmat suits have burnt their suits.
Yeah. The restaurant where they ate their last meal before falling victim to whatever this nerve agent is has been under surveillance by police since last Monday, and they only quarantined it. This is odd. They just quarantined it a couple of days ago. So people who were at the restaurant have been advised to burn the clothing that they were using, and
or at least wash them.
Or at least wash them, and use baby wipes to wipe down your phone. Well, look, if you haven't gotten sick by now, you're probably not going to. You probably weren't exposed, but it's thought that they were sprayed with something, some sort of toxic nerve agent that was clearly very potent.
Then it's described as being persistent, which just cracks me up. Okay, baby wipe will take it off your phone and things like that, but it's really stubborn and persistent. So you're saying it's probably still on some of the surfaces in the restaurant,
yeah,
or at least that's what you're implying. But I can easily wipe it off my phone.
Yeah.
Which has lots of little crevices to hold on to stuff. Because the claim is that this, whatever this is, it's not been identified, but they know what it is, is much worse than VX or sarin.
Ooh.
You get about a drop on your skin and you're dead.
I thought VX and sarin were about as bad as you can get.
This is worse. And supposedly you can make it out of two common ingredients that are on their own not toxic in any way. But when combined appropriately in a lab setting, and of course the thinking is it takes someone more than just, a fly-by-night guy.
Right.
Oh, I know what these are. I think I'll just throw these together. And no, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be a chemist.
Yeah. And this is weird, too. Chemical teams have set up tents at the graves. And this is why I saw the word graves and I assumed that they had passed on. But I was mistaken. The graves of Skripal's wife and son. And
yes.
They're testing for traces of this nerve agent at the gravesite.
Yes, she supposedly died of cancer, I think, and the son, what was it, a heart attack? Or I can't remember what the son died of. But yeah, they're now thinking, were they killed? If you look back at what happened, it looks like Yulia, the daughter, the 33-year-old daughter, liked a tweet that seemed to sort of bash Putin.
Okay.
That's the height of her public, political stance against Putin. So why on earth? Because the claim in these articles is that that Putin just said, "That's it, I'm taking him out."
Yeah. Well, Skripal was imprisoned in Russia. He had been found guilty of spying for MI6.
Yes.
Which is Britain's intelligence agency. And he was traded to Britain.
Britain's foreign intelligence agency.
Right,
They only do spying outside of Britain. MI5 spies on the citizens. They're like our FBI.
Right. Although MI6 and the NSA, which is likewise not supposed to spy on American citizens, they really do.
Oh, yeah. GCHQ, they're always listening to us.
Yeah. GCHQ.
Hi, how you doing?
The GCHQ guy does the listening for NSA and vice versa. It's that way plausible deniability.
Yep.
Anyway, Skripal was found guilty and imprisoned, and he was traded to Britain as part of a swap. We traded them some Russian agents that have been captured here and imprisoned in the U.S., and Britain likewise in exchange. And Skripal had settled in Salisbury. The story now is that it's believed they were exposed to the nerve agent at Skripal's home, possibly from a present that his daughter brought from Moscow.
Oh, that's new.
But they were both found, and they were affected at the same time, about 100 meters, which is about 100 yards roughly, from the restaurant in Salisbury, which is why the authorities were contacting people who'd been at that restaurant that same day, saying, this might have been sprayed or something inside the restaurant.
Yes, but here's the problem. The first responders were showing problems, breathing and things like that. Yes. So whatever happened, if it happened at their home, it was clinging to their clothes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Skripal's wife, Lyudmila, buried in 2012. Alexander was cremated last year. I'm trying to read the
I know there's so many stories, but it's difficult to dig into them and actually see the meat.
Yeah, there are about 400 first responders now in Salisbury working on this. But as you say, the takeaway from all of this is that Russia is bad, Putin is evil, and we need to do something about Russia taking out. I don't know if he'd been granted UK citizenship. I assume so, since he was settled in Salisbury, attacking people on British soil. Well, that is kind of a big deal, but that's part of the game that's been played for, centuries. Mm-hmm. Why is it now news? During the Cold War, it was sort of assumed that this sort of thing was going on back and forth between the US, UK, Russia, China, etc. Why is this big news now? Here in the US, the story keeps getting brought up. I mean, for some reason, the progressives and Democrats seem just fixated on this idea that Donald Trump is a puppet of Putin, even though it was Trump who ordered the U.S. military to attack Syrian forces at a base where Russian soldiers were based, even though we gave Russia a warning, get your guys out of the way because we're about to hit with missiles. But there was that battle that took place just a couple of weeks ago near Deir ez-Zor, where Russian contractors, and we'll use that word in air quotes, accompanying troops loyal to Bashar al-Assad, Syria's president, were beaten back by a furious counterattack from American air and special forces, I think, but certainly airstrikes. I mean, the AC-130 Spectre gunships, the ones that, the big cargo plane with the big, super gun or whatever, the hyper gun that's on the side that just basically blew the snot out of the attacking forces, and literally dozens of Russians admitted killed, although Russia's defense ministry says, we don't know anything about those people. They may be Russian citizens, but they're not our soldiers.
Yeah,
officially.
Well, that's how you play it. You hire mercs.
Yeah,
mercenaries to go in, or you hire an exterior
and we've done the same thing.
To do
Americans
the same thing.
have done the same thing.
Back in the day, it was Blackwater.
Yeah, now it's
who's changed names like 10 times.
Z or
no,
Academy.
I think it's
Academy. I think
they may have even changed since Academy, and I think that's spelled
with an
I.
Yeah. So there's a Wagner is the name of the Russian friend of Putin who's set up the mercenary company that was supplying the troops to back up Bashar al-Assad. And they were basically trying to set up a bridge across the Euphrates River at Deir ez-Zor, which would have given them access to the best oil fields in Syria. They want to take those back. Those were under the control of the Islamic State for the last few years, which is partly how ISIS was funding its operations, selling black market oil through Turkey. And so, Assad wants that back. But right now, the forces allied with the United States, basically the Kurds, I mean, it's called Syrian Defense Forces, but that's like putting a brand on it so that the Syrian Arabs don't get too upset, even though it's Kurds, and they don't really get along with the Kurds very well. And they don't trust the Kurds.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. I see what you did there. It's really a mess. But anyway, the whole thing is demonizing Russia, even though you look at the big picture, and really Russia and the West ought to be on the same side of this fight. We have a much bigger issue here, and these cold warriors who are controlling both East and West, because there are hardliners in Russia who are more than happy to keep propagating this, the United States and the UK are evil meme, because they've got a defense industry that wants to sell bombs and bullets and planes and missiles just like our defense industry does. But we're in the middle of the third great Islamic expansion, and most of the West doesn't recognize it. I was like, well, no, that they're just looking for refuge from their homelands. Well, okay, and you can make the argument that in the case of Syria and, well, Libya, Egypt, and Somalia, Sudan, that we've played a role in destabilizing those places and making them unfit to live. But they weren't that great before, because the Sunnis and Shias are busy fighting each other almost as fiercely as they're fighting, the kafir.
Oh, yeah, but this moves way beyond the Middle East, because Europe itself is starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
And not just Brexit and other countries that want to get out of the European agreement, but NATO is fracturing.
Yeah.
And Russia has traditionally been sort of anti-NATO.
Right.
And in fact, here's a story just from today. The leading U.S. general in Europe, the head of NATO, says he does not have the resources necessary to tackle a hypothetical Russian attack against the multinational coalition.
Right. There have been think tanks that have been wargaming this for a while and say that if Russia really wanted to mount a ground offensive into Eastern Europe, no problem. I mean, we have troops there who would be a tripwire. Essentially, sadly, I hate to say it, the guys like those on the USS Missouri and the Arizona and at Pearl Harbor, or who basically, even though the Roosevelt White House had a pretty good idea the Japanese were up to something, let's not tell Admiral Kimmel, and we'll just see what happens, because they needed something to give to prod the American public into saying we need to go to war.
Yeah,
because look, 1939, 1940. For a lot of people, World War I was still a fresh memory. Oh, yeah, that was the war where 16 million people died and then another 20 to 50 million in the Spanish flu. We just don't want to go back there right now. Let the Europeans fight it out. But then, Pearl Harbor. Oh, well, and the Japanese are aligned with the Germans? Okay.
If you look at the entire world system as a massive game of spiritual risk, then the spirits have been moving their people over the last several decades. So people groups from Africa, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, parts of the Middle East, even Asia, have been moving into the Western continents, and especially the United States and Canada, for a while now.
Yeah.
And look at what's going on in England. There are entire groups of young people who are at risk because folks who come in from the outside and they have a different viewpoint on how women are treated have been sort of, frankly, they've been assaulting them.
Yeah.
There have been as many as 1,500 in one town.
Yeah, that's a story that has been breaking for a while. The latest, and we talked a little bit about the this on 5 and 10. I know that viewers and listeners in the UK, and thanks to Chris in particular, who sent me a couple of notes recently about this to remind me of what was been going on in Rotherham, which is Oh gosh, yeah, 1,500 or thereabouts who have been groomed, and I don't have the notes in front of me, but
it's a gang that had
Pakistani origin for the most part,
and they have been quote unquote grooming these young girls and then assaulting them. And now today we find out from Shropshire that another 1,000 have come forward. Right. So it's 2,500 total just in these two towns.
Yeah, and the thing that's really disturbing, looking in from the outside, and we Westerners, again, we've been, for the last 50 years at least, we've been taught that we cannot judge in the color of skin, which is okay. You know, when it comes to those who are faithful followers of Jesus Christ, there is no Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. We're all one in Christ Jesus. What we're dealing with here, though, are people who are not followers of Jesus Christ. And so we can say, well, look, when you've got a situation like you've got in Rotherham or in Shropshire, where you have a problem where a large number of underage girls have been groomed and sexually abused, in fact, trafficked for the purpose of sex. And the vast majority of the suspects, including the few, and because there is only very few who've been indicted or charged, and very, very few who've been convicted, and I think only a handful in the Rotherham case, are of Pakistani origin. I mean, the vast majority. I mean, we're not talking like statistical, like a few of them are Pakistani and the rest are English guys. No, it's almost all English girls and Pakistani men. And yet this story has been buried by officials because they don't want to appear, apparently, they don't want to appear racist. This
is a spiritual issue in Pakistan and in India for, again, decades and maybe even for centuries. Women have been degraded there and denigrated there, yes. And they have been assumed. In fact, oftentimes because the governments in those two countries are trying to be more responsible and responsive, they are starting to prosecute these young men when they go after them. Sometimes it's done in gang rapes.
Yeah.
And if the girl is alive and can testify, these young men are often sent to prison. So the solution is rape her, kill her.
Yeah.
And so more and more of these young girls are found burnt or hanging from trees.
Yeah, this story in Telford, which is in Shropshire, emerged. The story that's emerging is that up to 1,000 children as young as aged 11 were drugged, beaten, and raped over 40 years. This began in the 1980s. The story in Shropshire, or in Rotherham, doesn't go back that far. But this sex gang apparently active as far back as the 1980s. It is horrific. But you even in this story, you have to dig way down below the fold, as it were, to find out that we've identified a couple of guys who've been arrested here. One is named Mubarak Ali, the other is Akhdel Ali, another named Azhar Ali Mahmoud. Okay, what's the thread connecting those three there? And it's a similar thing in Rotherham.
Yeah, well, listen, I just want to really... You can continue reading this, but I want to make sure that people understand we are not saying this is because they are Pakistani. We're saying it is a spiritual issue.
Right.
All over the world, every people group, you can find young people, but often it's young men who, for whatever reason, only find support through a gang situation. So they go out on the streets and they find a family of accepting members and they're brought into this gang. It's been going on in white countries, whatever color your skin is, it happens. And very often the young women who live in the area are the ones who are at risk.
Right, because they're the most vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that is true. And sadly, I recognize when we start down this road with stories like this, that there's a danger that I will appear racist, which is not the case.
No.
There's a danger that people outside will hear this the wrong way and take this as a racist rant. But historically speaking, when you look at societies where you bring cultures that are very, very different, and because of cultural or religious beliefs, believe that they should not assimilate with the dominant culture that they moved into, you wind up with conflict.
Yes, but the same thing happened in England when the Vikings came in. I mean, it doesn't matter what people group is coming in.
Right,
it doesn't
right.
matter what their skin color is.
Exactly right. That's my point. The societies where you don't see this kind of cultural clash, this cultural conflict, are the cultures that tend to be homogenous, like Japan or Korea, where you don't find a lot of outside influence. You don't hear or read about, for example, radical Islamists or Hindus in Japan, bombing Shinto temples or something, because there aren't any there.
Right.
Now, you do have that problem in, say, India, where violent Hindus are taking action against Christians. We saw another story in Rwanda where that was a different story.
Rwanda's a different thing. Rwanda, 700 churches have been shut down there because they're not complying with noise rules and other building rules, which I think is I'd like to dig into that and see what they meant by noise pollution.
Yeah.
But ironically, yesterday, maybe it was Friday, one of the churches was hit by lightning.
Yeah.
And dozens of people have gone to hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. That's bizarre. Bizarre. But anyway, the point is that it's a simple formula. Diversity plus proximity equals conflict.
Yes.
That's just that simple. It's nothing racist about it. It's just when you put people who are very, very different together in the same area, they will struggle for control, and it often results in violence.
And when you put spirits from different regions together, that's the thing.
Right.
What we see is merely the material manifestation of what's really going on underneath.
Yeah. Well, this is again, this is horrible, and sadly, because of the ethnic makeup of many of those who've been accused in Telford, Shropshire, and in Rotherham, at some point, the native English will find their inner Saxon and or inner Viking, since over the years they finally did learn to get along, mainly by intermarrying. Yeah. But at some point things may get really ugly there, as the parents of these girls and other men just stand up and say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore, and we don't care if you're guilty or not. You have to go. And it's.
Well,
this
total
is what
left turn.
Enemy wants to do, keep us at each other's throats.
That is so true. Well, total left turn.
Yes.
Scientists now have figured out how to get rid of these asteroids that keep dive bombing the Earth. They're always doing flybys. A lot of times they don't even reveal themselves until the last minute, and they laugh with snotty glee the whole time they fly past.
Bruce Willis?
Yes, they're going to blow them up with nukes.
I did see that story, and there was one in particular that they think is enough of a threat in the 2030s that it was the motivation to begin working out a plan.
Trying to see in this article if it actually gives the name of the one. Is it BuzzFeed? Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm going to have to go back and look, because I've been clipping so many notes lately that I've been overwhelmed with notes.
Well, I'm clipping notes for all that, plus I clip notes for Red Wing, so I'm just constantly, I spend my whole day clipping notes.
Drinking from a fire hose.
Oh, good grief. Let's see. Smart people are taking this seriously and thinking carefully about what might be done, MIT impact expert says. Smart people are taking this seriously. Nothing like nuking things in space. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah.
So is Bennu the name of the thing?
I think
16 foot wide.
Yes, I think that's the one.
Okay.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, that's what this article says. It says it's Bennu. Isn't that the name of a bird?
Yeah, it was the Bennu bird, which was Egyptian cosmology, the bird that.
It's the linked with the sun, creation, and rebirth.
Yes, yes.
So if we nuke the Bennu bird, think of this as the phoenix.
Yeah.
It's associated with our Osiris.
That's right. We've talked about that before. Yeah, this was a story just published a couple of days ago at BuzzFeed. Space.com picked it up as well. Government scientists have a plan for blowing up asteroids with a nuke. Yay.
So who said, let's name that one Bennu?
Jeriu? Bennu and Jeriu? First thing that... Anyway.
Woo! Flyby, laughing as it went past.
September 21st, 2135. There's a 1 in 2,700 chance it will hit the Earth. So government scientists now have a plan. They've designed a spacecraft to hit large oncoming asteroids with a nuke.
And the good news is if we nuke it, then it'll change its, its track and it'll come right at us.
Yeah, that's it. If they don't get it right, and it'll make for a great movie if nothing else. It's called the Hypervelocity Asteroid Mitigation Mission for Emergency Response. Hammer!
Oh!
Can't touch
yes.
this. Doom, doom. Yeah.
Cue Thor.
Hammer time. Yeah.
Thor's going after an Egyptian bird of rebirth?
Well, the storm gods all carried a mace.
Oh, so
Baal.
who was the Egyptian storm god?
Well, it was Baal, Set, the god of chaos.
Set, as in the Sutians?
Yes. Yeah.
You'll have to read Derek's next book to get that one.
Yeah, that they were a tribe of among the Amorites, but there was some significance to the Sutians.
It all comes back down to spiritual warfare. It really does. Everything, if you really look at it closely enough, you realize that underneath it all is the spiritual war.
It is. And I want to cycle back around to the NATO that you were talking about, because, of course, Turkey is a member of NATO.
Yes.
And both President Erdogan and the leader of the opposition party in Turkey have been making a lot of noise recently about, you think we've forgotten about those islands in the Aegean that Greece took from us back when he declared independence? We have not forgotten about those. And essentially making noise that Turkey is going to retake those islands.
Well, like I said, that's not going to play well with Great Britain because Prince Philip is Greek.
And again, Turkey is a NATO member. I believe Greece is a NATO member. Is that?
Yes, they are. Or at least they were.
The problem with Turkey as a NATO member is that they're doing things that the rest of NATO really doesn't want.
Yes. Greece and Turkey both joined the
in 52,
year.
1952.
Yep.
Interestingly, though, Greece withdrew its forces from NATO's military command structure between 1974 and 1980 because of the 1974 Turkish invasion of Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you've watched the original House of Cards, there's a reference to all of that in there.
Right. That's right.
Yep.
Which, most of us here in the United States, especially younger listeners, probably wouldn't even be aware of. I'm vaguely aware of, but there's been a lot of tension in that part of the world for a long, long time. The Turks are relative newcomers to Asia Minor, Anatolia. They came in and took the area in the 15th century when they conquered the Byzantine Empire, because the Greeks were the Byzantines. Mm-hmm. They controlled that, the western part of Turkey anyway, and certainly the access to the Black Sea until the middle of the 15th century. They were conquered in 1453. And the Turks then controlled it and it became the Ottoman Empire, and now Turkey. Mm-hmm. But the Turks immigrated into Anatolia from Asia, the steppes of Asia. I mean, the Turkic peoples cover a huge territory as far east as Xinjiang province of China. The Uyghurs are Turkish.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So here's the thing. When we're looking at and taking this into the realm of prophecy, and this is because I've been writing this section of the forthcoming book, the Gog Magog conflict. Going back to 1909 when Cyrus Schofield. Mm-hmm. Was it Cyrus or Charles? Anyway, C.I. Schofield. I'll just skip right over that by using the acronym. Published his reference Bible, which is one of the most, and has been one of the most influential study Bibles ever published. Published originally in 1909, and then it was updated in 1917. At the time...
That's the version I had for years.
Mm-hmm. And at the time he published his Bible, leading up to World War I, which began in 1914, 1915. As far as Bible prophecy was concerned... Cyrus, okay, I was right. I was right the second time anyway. Most Christians held an amillennial worldview. The 19th century was a time of great technological progress. We moved from horse and buggy to steam engines, steam-powered ships. We were beginning to see the development of airships in the late 19th century. And So there was this optimistic amillennialism that was the dominant interpretive model for Bible prophecy. Amillennialism, believing that we're in the church age now. The church age is symbolic, or the millennial reign is symbolic. It doesn't represent a literal 1,000 years.
Right.
And the world will get better and better as we Christianize the world.
Yeah, that's happening.
Until Jesus comes back. That is still the official position of most of the mainline Christian denominations out there.
But that fell apart during World War I.
That's my point. And Cyrus Schofield's reference Bible, which put forward a pre-millennial view, which is the view that we believe is correct. I mean, the Bible's pretty clear. Jesus returns, reigns for 1,000 years. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
When you've got a war that, like I said earlier, killed 16 million people, plus then another 20 to 50 in the Spanish flu. I mean, imagine that in the span of just a few years, between 1915 and 1920, the world lost between 36 and 65 million people.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to believe the world's getting better and better when that is going on out there, especially in Christendom.
When
Europe.
Every family has lost someone.
Exactly. So it was a little hard to accept that. And right in the middle of this, and I got this out of BibleStudyTools.com actually has all of the Schofield reference notes available online. Ezekiel 38, verse 2, here's the reference for Gog. And this was from the 1917 edition, which, of course, about the time...
I think that black Bible behind you is Schofield.
I think you're right. I knew we had one around here somewhere.
That's my old Bible. That's the one I carried to church when I was a kid.
Well, the Russian Empire was falling apart because of the Bolshevik Revolution. Just about the time his updated study Bible was coming out, reference Bible was coming out. The entrance for Gog in Ezekiel 38, verse 2, that the primary reference is to the Northern European powers headed up by Russia. All agree.
Exactly. And for decades after that.
Right.
In fact, still many prophecy scholars believe that the king of the uttermost north, and I'm putting that in air quotes, is Russia. But as you said, that's probably a misunderstanding.
Yeah. And Gordon went on and he wrote that the reference to Meshech and Tubal, who are mentioned by Ezekiel in chapter 38, refers to Moscow and the central Russian city of Tobolsk.
Yes.
Well, with all due respect to Mr. Schofield, who did a wonderful work. I mean, his incredible amount of scholarly research and work into his Bible, but he's wrong. And Joel Richardson has written and talked about that. But ever since the Cold War, after World War II, this idea gained more traction, especially Hal Lindsey, late great Planet Earth, who I take nothing away from Mr. Lindsey and his scholarship.
I love Hal Lindsey.
Absolutely.
Love him. But we're all trying to come at this, to come together in iron sharpening iron.
Yes.
Because not every interpretation you have is correct.
No, that's true. It probably is. But I'm willing to admit that I might be wrong. No, I'm kidding, of course, because I do not consider myself a scholar.
No, but I think that where you've come upon, I think it's right.
Yeah, and we have good friends. And I won't name names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but we have very good friends that we respect a great deal who are still convinced that Russia, it's almost taken as a given. Russia is the leader of this Magog confederation that comes out of the north. And
they may play a strong role.
And they may play a strong role. I mean, there's nothing saying that Russia won't be part of this, because what Ezekiel is saying in chapter 38, when you look at a map, first of all, when he's talking about north, the uttermost parts of the north, I've explained in other presentations, and I'll dig into detail in the book here, why that means cosmic north, the mount of assembly for the rebel from Eden, who is Baal / Lucifer / Satan. Cosmic north, all of the people groups mentioned, Meshech, Tubal, even Magog, refer to people groups that in the time of Ezekiel were in Turkey. And there's the one that, where some translate, including Gordon, let's see, I had the verse here and now I lost it again. Oh, okay, set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. That's how the ESV renders it. There are many who will translate that verse, the New King James, the NASB, other versions. Set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. And they would take Rosh, the Hebrew word Rosh, as a proper name.
Yeah.
or proper noun rather. But it's never used that way anywhere else in the Bible.
No.
It's the same word as in Rosh Hashanah. It means head, head of the year,
Yes.
New Year. When it's used at other places in the Bible, it means the chief man or chief of the chief men, or head of the mountain, like the mountaintop. So it never is a place name. There was no place name or people group in the 6th century BC anywhere.
No, and what I would bring this up, and that is that you and I this morning, we're in the book of Ezekiel right now in the Gilbert House Fellowship, and there are a lot of parallels between the book of Ezekiel and the visions he's given and the visions given to John in the book of Revelation. And in Ezekiel, he names all of those enemies, the various spirits that are going to fool humans into working with them and going against Jerusalem. In the book of Revelation, we get the opposite. We get the churches.
Yeah.
And they're both in Turkey.
They're all in Turkey. Right. That's a really good point. And in fact, I'm going to have to make a note, add that to that chapter. Revelation. Yeah, if I just put turkey down, I'll think, oh, yeah, delicious. Sounds good.
Yum.
And the other enemies that are mentioned by Ezekiel in chapter 38, back in the day, you could see them perhaps coming against Israel as an enemy. He mentions Persia, Cush, and Put, which are Iran, Ethiopia, and or Sudan, and Put is Libya. In our modern world, it's hard to see Libya and Ethiopia, especially Libya, since it's not even a functional state right now, coming against Israel. But if you just look at a map and then see what Ezekiel's doing, what he's saying is, okay, you've got Magog, which is cosmic north, Gog of Magog, coming out of Turkey. But again, the cosmic north leading
Mount
supernatural, right, Mount Zaphon, leading supernatural enemy from the north. And then we've got enemies coming from west, south, and east. Oh, all four corners of the earth are coming against it. That's what he's saying.
Exactly.
The whole world is going to fight against Israel.
Yes.
At the Battle of Armageddon, which is what Gog Magog is about. So, but when Russia is demonized as it is today, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up and spending too much time on this, but
No, I think it's important that people, because this is a concept that is really new for many of our listeners, and you and I have been digging into this for a couple of years now.
I just worry that sometimes when I get off on a rabbit trail like this, I just get, I dial down a little too fine grained.
No, some of the rabbit trails are the best stuff.
Well,
so
thank you.
You go hunting rabbits.
One bullet left. When Russia is the designated enemy of the week, as it was back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when the Cold War was on, it's tempting to identify Gog as, whoever's leading Russia at the time. And so and I think as we're looking at Bible prophecy, which is important because we're promised a blessing for studying the book of Revelation, and Ezekiel and Revelation are tied at the hip, joined at the hip.
They are.
We should do our best to understand it correctly, but we shouldn't be reading today's political headlines into the Bible to understand the Bible. We need to understand the world in which Ezekiel lived. And when you realize that in the 6th century BC, nobody in Ezekiel's day would have heard of anyone called the Rus or the Russians. They didn't exist. They weren't even identified anywhere until the 9th century AD. So, 1,500 years after Ezekiel, they were Vikings. It's the Vikings, the Swedes. They came down, literally, they came from Sweden and they set up a kingdom at Kiev.
Hey, it is the Libyans. It's the Libyans.
And so, yes, God may have given Ezekiel a prophecy that didn't make any sense in Ezekiel's day. Maybe. But maybe it's our understanding that's mistaken, especially when you look at the word Rosh and how it's used elsewhere in the Bible. This would be the only place ever that it's used in this way as a proper noun. So anyway, and again, there are a lot of respected Bible scholars who have adopted this view. But when you look at history, you see this too with the identity of the Antichrist. During the Reformation, Martin Luther.
Oh, yeah,
Antichrist, that's the Pope.
But the closer we get to the return of Christ, I believe that the sharper our vision is going to be made.
Yeah.
And, we don't even need nanotechnology to do that.
Oh, yeah. Although nanotech eye drops would be pretty cool.
Well, there's a story out. The reason we brought that up is because there is a claim by some scientists They've tried it on pigs, and it seems to work on the pigs. Pigs aren't complaining about it so far. Well, I can find my slop more easily, but I don't know. Can I just put my glasses back on? I found that I can read the evening paper a little bit better with those.
Yeah, besides, I like the look,
Well, nanotech
Glasses,
is being used
pipe.
for almost everything anymore.
Yeah.
Sitting here in my little smoking jacket.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, nanotech vision improving nanoparticle eye drops could end, okay.
Yeah, nanoparticles often are used to alter cell structure using, well, frankly, DNA. I'm not so sure that's a great idea. And some of this uses epigenetics to use the nanoparticles to go in and switch genes on and off. Scientists are having a blast in this sandbox.
Yeah. And it's sad because humans are the sand.
Yeah. Yeah. To which the Lord says, get your own sand.
Get your own sand.
And get your own humans. Leave this alone.
Well, according to the article, it's saying that this fix is only temporary, meaning you'd have to repeat the process every 1 to 2 months.
Well, and that's why a pharmaceutical house would probably jump on this because they can charge lots over and over.
Yeah. Nanodrops combined with a laser process. Well, if you have the laser,
I see. The laser fixes them anyway. Why do you need the nanodrops?
Right. If you can have a laser process, just have them laser your eyes and do it. Me, I'll stick with the glasses.
Me too.
I'm just not crazy about.
I think you're sexy in those glasses.
Well, that's what I think about you and yours. There.
Ooh.
Yeah. I like me a smart
Good
woman.
night, everybody.
Oh,
gosh.
What else is going on?
Well, this is an entirely different story. I just want to bring this up really briefly. Those in the UK have been dealing with this for a while, but it's possible because it did begin in the United States that it'll show up here again. Something called the Alabama rot, and it's a flesh-eating disease that's been affecting dogs. So if you see a wound that is simply not healing after a day or so, you might want to ask your vet. Because within a matter of days, your dog can be dead.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. Not that many dogs have been affected, but still, the recorded number of deaths in the UK last year was 37. That's a lot of dogs, in my opinion.
For something like this, you would think.
Yeah. Something that I'd never heard of until I saw the story a few days ago.
Huh. A couple of things here.
Total since it emerged in 2012. Around 135 cases have been recorded since 2012. This article is really difficult to decipher, but apparently since January 1 of this year alone, 15 dogs have died. That's
so it's
a
picking
lot.
up steam.
It's picking up steam. Yeah. So this is something to keep an eye on with your little furry animals.
Yeah. China, they've just changed their constitution. Xi Jinping, who was formerly limited to 2 terms by the Constitution, now can rule for life.
As long as he runs for, does he have to run for election again? Because he'll win. I mean, look, he's got 99.99% of the vote.
Yeah.
Oh, nope, make that 100. Someone just died down in such and such province.
Yeah. Don't know. But the constitutional amendment has abolished term limits. So, he probably will have to run again. But it's the same thing Russia's done for Vladimir Putin.
I know. Putin just figures out a way around it. I mean, the fact is that and I will say this, I'm not a big fan. In fact, I'm not a fan at all of dictators. Because I think that the fact that we have free will means that God doesn't believe dictators are the right way to govern. Mm-hmm. However, sometimes when you have a group of individuals that don't get along very well, a dictator actually helps to hold them together.
Right.
It's called the strongman theory.
Yeah, and that's what we saw in Iraq. I mean, we took Saddam Hussein out, and the country's basically fallen apart. We took Muammar Gaddafi out of Libya, and Libya is a non-functional state.
Yeah. The borders that we have, most of the people who are listening to this, in fact, I would think everybody who's listening to this, you assume the world has always been the way it is. Yeah. That the names of the countries and the borders that are drawn, no, they have changed many, many times over millennia. Yep. The best way to do it is what we see in Bible prophecy: name the people group, name the tribe,
the ethnos. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a really good way of looking at it. And what makes things difficult, coming back to the Gog Magog prophecy, is that a lot of those names just aren't in use anymore. I mean, we don't have a Meshech or a Tubal. And again, etymologically, there's no connection between Moscow and Tobolsk, just to make that point. But Beth Togarmah, the House of Togarmah. Who would know that probably refers to Armenia? Well, you wouldn't just from the name, but so it's the same thing. You have to follow as much as you can where those people ended up, and to really identify who Ezekiel was talking about in this case and in other prophecies, with other references in the Bible. Where were they at the time the prophet was writing the words down under the guidance of the Holy Spirit? So,
well, we're going to end with one last story. We got time for one more story?
Oh yeah, we're at 50 minutes.
Oh, are we? Well, maybe we can do two last stories. But,
yeah, I've got one here that somebody asked me.
Okay, well, you go ahead and do that, and then we'll do the final one with me.
Okay. Somebody asked me to address something that's been going around the web here for a couple of years now called the Book of Og.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to refer to an article that Mike Heiser put together, and he just very quickly did a search among some academic papers to find what it was referred to. And scholarly studies who've looked into the origins of the so-called Book of Og. And there's a website out there that purports to be the Book of Og. You can buy a copy of this book at Amazon, The Only Written Words of the Rephaim. Well, no, it's not. The Book of Og is a Manichaean version of the Book of Giants, which is Enochian literature from the Second Temple period, which means the period between the return of the Jews to Jerusalem.
Wasn't Augustus a Manichaean follower there for a while?
No, because Mani, the Armenian prophet who founded Manichaeism, didn't live until the 3rd century.
Oh, okay. For some reason.
So Mani, M-A-N-I, lived between 216 and 274 A.D., founded Manichaeism, which is a Gnostic religion, and he basically took the Book of the Giants, which was at...
Augustine of Hippo converted to Christianity from Manichaeism.
Okay. All right. I thought you said Augustus.
I did, but it's Augustine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Augustine was a Manichaean, and then he converted, right. And that's why he was so anti... angel thing, and that's why he. Oh no, those.
He just went crazy in the other direction.
Yeah, they were Sethites. They weren't. Anyway, Mani, who lived in the 3rd century, basically wrote his own version or translated a version of the Book of Giants, which was Enochic literature, into a form that fit his beliefs and his worldview, and put it out there. It's Gnostic. It's 3rd century AD. It has no connection at all to Og of Bashan, who lived about 1,800 years before that. So there is
gives
nothing.
You an insight into the mind at the time, though, the Gnostic mind at the time.
It does. That's really all it tells you, but it doesn't tell you anything about Og of Bashan or what they believed or anything of that nature.
Right.
I'm digging deep into Og and the Rephaim in the forthcoming book. So. Yeah, there are folks out there who are pointing to it, but again, if it's being presented as the authentic writings of Og and teachings of Og of the Rephaim, it's not.
Because we really don't know much about him.
No. There are references to his kingdom in Canaanite texts from that period of history, and there are, in fact, references to Bashan in the Egyptian execration texts, which go back to the time of Abraham. In fact, there was a ruler there who, the execration texts were like the Egyptian version of voodoo dolls, where they would take pottery, inscribe the names of their enemies on the pottery, and they would pronounce a curse over it and then smash the pots. And that's how they would curse their enemies. And there was a ruler in Ashtaroth, which was the city from which Og ruled, and also the god called Rapayu, king of eternity. But anyway, this ruler about the time of Abraham was named Ayub, which is an alternate spelling of the name Job. Oh,
that's really, of course, may have been a popular name.
It probably was. David's general Joab, another alternate spelling of Job.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it places him in the, and he was also called, by the way, leader of the Shutu. The Sutians.
Yes, that's very interesting.
The Transjordan, which is where the Rephaim were known to live, which is where Job of the Bible lived, because the land of Uz is it was either in Edom, in the Transjordan, or it was up near Bashan. So anyway.
That's going to be neat. Now, the book's that book's coming out in August?
August.
Or is this the book after that?
No, this is the book in August.
Yay. Not Augustine.
No. Or Augustus. The month of Augustus.
Yeah. There you go.
There's the connection.
There's the connection.
We've solved it.
Well, I want to end with this, and it's a story that's been going around, and actually it's a true one. It has to do with Alexa.
Okay.
This appeared February 26th, along with many other tweets that are like it. A guy, I won't give his name, but a guy at Twitter, lying in bed about to fall asleep when Alexa on my Amazon Echo Dot lets out a very loud and creepy laugh. There's a good chance I get murdered tonight. Now, that sounds funny, but the fact is that Alexa has been turning itself on without instruction, without anyone saying, hey, Alexa, and laughing.
That is really weird.
Well, supposedly Amazon is working to fix it, but you have to wonder, did somehow the code sort of reshape itself on its own, or did some designer build that in? You know, okay, I'm going to, at this thing, when I just sort of backdoor it, I'll turn it on and have it laugh. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a story that, in fact, the New Yorker's got a story on this. BBC has got a story on this, too, this weekend. So this is still current, even though this really broke about a month ago. Yeah, BBC reporting Amazon's Alexa has been letting out an unprompted, creepy cackle. The laugh, described by some as witch-like, was reported to sometimes happen without the device being woken up.
Oh, well, you know, if we can find that and play the sound for you, Derek will put it in here. But you can probably find it online. You have to wonder what she's up to.
Amazon promises fix for creepy Alexa laugh.
We feel sick about it. Okay, we did the nose and the laugh.
Laughing with snotty glee.
Indeed. Well, you know, the asteroid is up there going, ha, ha, ha. So I hope, let's just pray that the scientists, the fix for this is just to nuke it.
Yeah. From space.
From space, it's the only way to be sure.
Yeah. Well, we've got just a couple of weeks before we're in Dallas. In fact, we'll be kind of wrapping things up in Dallas about this point in a couple of weeks.
I know. Isn't that exciting? We're going to have some books with us, and we hope that if you're going to be in the area physically, that you will stop into the hotel. It's the Dallas-Fort Worth Lake.
It's the DFW
Lakes.
Or the Hilton DFW Lakes Conference Center.
Yeah, it's at the airport.
Something like that. Yeah, it's in Grapevine, Texas, very close to the airport.
Lots of great places to eat around there because Mike Kerr who's Mike Whitestone at Facebook, if you want to go on and add him as a friend. He and his wife Jeannie have been, they organize these Hear the Watchman conferences a couple a year. And we've been honored the last couple of years to be involved. And we just pray that so long as we're still here, that we still get to do it because it is a wonderful gathering of servants.
Yeah. This one promises to be fantastic. Bill Salas, L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, Carl Gallups,
I know.
Rabbi Zev Porat, Henry Groover, Pastor Paul Begley. What?
Are you serious?
Casper McLeod, and our friend Sean Tabbitt, who's a book publicist, will be there. We're looking forward to that as well.
One of the sweetest guys on this earth.
Yeah.
Next to you.
And well.
Good night, everybody. No, we're going to be there, and we really hope that you'll stop by. And if you can't be there, you know what? You can still stream it.
Yeah.
And it's not very expensive. You can even save 20% on the $49 price using Gilbert 20. GILBERT 20.
That's your promo code at hearthewatchmen.com. That's hearthewatchmen.com. Still time to sign up for that at the website there.
And you get to listen to it for watch it for 6 months.
Right.
6 months.
So, yeah, plenty of time to watch it on your schedule, the various presentations, rewatch the ones that are really interesting, invite friends over, show them stuff. And
I think Alexa's going to be watching it.
Yeah. And
Alexa, play Hear the Watchmen. That's it. That's a pretty good laugh, honey.
Well, working on it. Today's View from the Bunker. Oh, by the way, as we mentioned earlier, Ezekiel, chapters 5 through 8 is all we got through today, but some deep stuff there in the Bible study. You'll find that at gilberthouse.org, and you'll get a new View from the Bunker later this evening as well. David Valsich, young man I was introduced to by Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis.
Have you ever noticed that the Gilbert House Fellowship, the way we do these things from the time that we first started until now, it's sort of like an event horizon. The closer we get to the end,
the farther away it moves. Yeah.
The farther away it moves because the slower we go.
Yeah. Which is okay.
At least it looks like we're moving slowly. We're just sort of taking our time because as we've gone through it, we've got more contextual information.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We've learned some, so when we stumble into something that, hey, wait a minute, information we didn't have when we started back in Genesis 1, which means when we go back around,
Genesis 1
if the Lord tarries, we'll
If we ever get to the end of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And once we reach the end of the Old Testament, we will start the New Testament again. So if you missed that, then...
Yeah.
But you can listen to it all. They're in the archives.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. We thank you for listening. And until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening. P.I.D. Radio is a production of Gilbert House Ministries. The opening theme is adapted from The Alchemist's Tower by Kevin MacLeod, www.incompetech.com. The closing theme is Right Light by Joe Horn and Broken for Good. Find their album Right Where You Stand at Spotify and the iTunes Music Store. Our website is PIDradio.com, where you'll find the show notes, links to our personal websites, and links to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The content of this program is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives 4.0 International License. For more information, see creativecommons.org.
I woke up this morning with some aching in my head. Darkness could have stuck around and filled my day with dread, but it's gonna be alright. Gonna be just fine for me. Turning on the right light, it's gonna set me free. This life seems way too willing to try and knock me down. I just know there's a way I can turn it all around. It's gonna be alright. Gonna be just fine for me. Turning on the right light, it's gonna set me free.